Hello everyone, welcome to Starbucks on the way back from Wigan, where Norwich City drew 2-2, of course, with Wigan Athletic. We're doing this video live, well it's not live actually because we haven't got a connection, but we're doing this video, myself and Paddy Davitt, because we didn't do one last night, so apologies for that, but we thought we'd do it now. And also, you'll probably be listening to this on the pinken.com Norwich City podcast as well, because we're killing two birds with one stone, which is very efficient of us, isn't it, Pad?
For a change.
He said it. As I said, we're travelling back from Wigan, where Norwich City picked up a 2-2 draw, and I think Paul Chesterton, our esteemed photographer, asked me this last night, whether it was 2 points dropped or 1 point picked up. I mean, I certainly feel it was the 2 points dropped category more than the other one. How did you feel about it, Pat?
Yeah, I'd agree, and more importantly so with the manager. Very disappointed, his post-match demeanour. You know, I talked about frustration, and you can see why, really. I mean, thinking about it since, before a ball had been kicked at Cardiff Saturday, you'd have said, right, you're going to come back to Carrow Road this Saturday, you'll have 4 points from 2 tough away games, you'd have signed for it. Bearing in mind how wretched they've been on the road, but having got the win at Cardiff in those circumstances, and then dealt with what they needed to deal with in the first half at Wigan. You know, physically they were strong again, pretty one-dimensional stuff, but got themselves in front and they're in control of the game. And then seen it too many times before, I'm afraid. 20-minute spell by the manager's own admission, where they've basically been overwhelmed and sadly done on set pieces again. Recurring theme. We hoped on that aspect they'd come to terms with it. They haven't on that evidence, and but on the positive, they did come back again. You know, we saw it Barnsley and Reading. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to click through them all. QPR, Derby. You know, when they've gone behind, they haven't had the wherewithal to get back on level terms and maybe even go on and nick something, a winner. And they did that last night. Mitchell Dykes' header, so that's a positive to me. The character they've shown there, and it is a point when the dust settles, but should be all three, and it should be 6 on the road in the last 5 days.
I got it suggested to me, and I haven't checked it out, though. It's only the second time this season Norwich have come back from behind to get anything this season, which sounds plausible. Yeah. And it was curious, wasn't it? Because they weren't shy of effort, and they did actually raise to the sort of battle for most of it, apart from those 20 minutes. It was quite a sort of one very specific spell in the game, which I guess had people shaking their heads.
Well, ultimately what happened was, you get to half-time, Norwich are 1-0 up, and they're in control. They would play in that brand of Championship football better than Wigan were, to be brutally honest, which is fairly functional. So Warren Joyce, you know, they're second from bottom at kick-off. They need to change something. He's thrown Will Grigg on. They've gone 2 up top. They've basically matched up Norwich, and Norwich couldn't cope with that. And Alex Neil said afterwards, when I put it to him that they obviously changed things, he said, well, that meant they matched it up with us, and I, quote, felt we had better players than they are, which is the mantra we got after Birmingham. And obviously on the occasion of the Birmingham game, Norwich's better players did prevail. But you know, you could say that's arrogance on one level, it's also confidence on another. But I just think if Wigan have altered something, Norwich need to react, because they didn't react. And then what happens is then they get a few skirmishes in and around the box, the crowd get back into it, they have a few corners, a few set pieces, and Norwich are vulnerable. I mean, it wasn't just the first goal from Bogle, there was 2 or 3 other, both before and after, when the ball's gone in the box from the corners, and it's just last ditch. It's absolute panic stations, and it's clearly obvious that group of Norwich players are vulnerable from set plays. So why give them any encouragement is what I'm basically saying. You track that right back to source. Just when they've thrown Grigg on and the game was clearly altered, the dynamic of the game, Norwich need to react for me, and they haven't. And that's culpability off the pitch with the manager, and it's on the pitch with them players. They're experienced enough to see that they've gone 2 up top, they couldn't counteract it, and they paid the price ultimately, because they've ended up having to scramble a draw when really the way the first half had gone should have been a win. So, you know, no one to blame but themselves.
And that certainly accusation has been levelled towards the manager for, well, we're getting on certainly longer than a year at least. He did go 4-4-2 as we mentioned, and I thought it was interesting after the game. He said that it worked in patches, but that some of the issues they had were the issues that he feels they have whenever they play 4-4-2, which is why he doesn't tend to do it. Yeah. As almost sort of doubting why he went for it in the first place. I mean, they did look quite flat, and they just had no room to play in. Even when they were on top of the game, they found it really hard going.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Yeah, I don't think Nelson Oliveira looks as good a player in a 2 as he is in a 1. I think Jerome's better in a 1 as well. Even though I know he said publicly before that all through his career he prefers playing in a 2. But as you rightly say, it just looked very cluttered in those areas of the pitch, and the ball wasn't sticking. A point made by the manager in that 20-minute spell where the game tilted, that the ball wasn't sticking with the front 2 players. Because that's not really Nelson Oliveira's game. Balls fired up from full-back areas, centre-back areas. He's not really going to play them unless they're into his feet and it's decent service. Balls in and around his head, it wasn't sticking. So, yeah, he's 100% correct for me there in his assessment. Parts of that union worked, other parts didn't, and that contributed to what happened in the second half.
There's a nice chat with Nelson Oliveira that I had, talking about his sending off and a few bits and bobs that will be out in the next few days, so keep an eye out for those. This is the point, I think, on the podcast where you'll be lucky enough to listen to the thoughts of Alec Neil and Nelson Oliveira. You guys on the video, you're just going to have to wait, but listen out to the podcast, which you can subscribe to. It's on iTunes. Just search Norwich City or Pinken and you should be able to find it, or go to pinken.com/podcast and all the links will be there for you too. We should touch on Yannick Vilschud, or Vilschud.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I think we should. No, you're shaking your head. I mean, only in terms of the fact that he got a pretty hot reception, which had obviously been highly billed, and he was pretty ineffective at Cardiff and arguably had a tougher game of it this time around. I'd like to think that now he's got this game out of the way, it's something he doesn't have to think about, and he can kick on, because the fact that he posted an advert in the Wigan Post or whatever it was to explain his reasons for move meant that it was clearly on his mind.
Yeah, no, he wasn't at Cardiff, so I can't judge him on that performance. But last night, shocking, absolutely shocking. Clearly, those were factors. He was booed mercilessly from start to finish,
from the warm up.
Yeah. And he was culpable for the free kick, albeit that there was other people then thereafter. But it was him who gave the free kick away for the second Wigan goal. Didn't see anything of a player signed at great expense. But it's early days. It would be very, very unfair to judge the man on that evidence, for reasons already stated by yourself there. I mean, that was going to be difficult, whatever the circumstances. But the fact it came so soon after the move as well, feelings are still very raw, on both sides. It would have feel, but that isn't a good start to me for his Norwich career. From what you boys are saying, what you saw at Cardiff, and then that last night, he needs to up it quickly. We're now at the business end of the season. He knows unlike Dykes, he knows what English football's all about. He knows what the Championship's all about, and we need to see a lot more than that. But in his defence, obviously 2 tough away games. Norwich have really had to come out of their usual style, and I think it might be different at Carrow Road this weekend. So, let's reserve judgment, but not promising early signs from what I saw last night.
100%. And I still remember Nelson Oliveira's first few appearances where not sure about this. And he came good in the end, so that was all right. And you touched on Mitchell Dykes. That's the first time you've seen him play.
Yeah.
Pad, what did you make of it? He got a goal, of course. I mean, it's going quite well.
By all accounts, Bogle was his man, so he the first header that Bogle scored from inside the 6-yard box. As much as John Ruddy, I don't know, I haven't seen the highlights subsequently, only saw it once in real time, but I think Ruddy come for a ball and was never getting it. But I think it was Dykes' man, so he scored one, but he was probably at fault for one as well. So, but he's certainly a big boy. I can see physically that won't be phasing him at all. So. I don't think Norwich are weaker in the left back position for him, from what I can see. No.
We already know he's called Big Mitch, so there we go. All right, well, that's pretty much. There's not much to say about Wigan. I mean, they're in a relegation scrap, and I didn't really see much yesterday to think that won't continue for the rest of the season. In terms of Norwich, they go to Carrow Road, Forest on Saturday. I mean, it feels like it's been a little while since they were back at home, and then of course they've got Newcastle, also at Carrow Road, a few days later. Two big home games. I mean, what do we want from that? Because I guess normally you'd take a point away from home, but the problem is Norwich are still playing so much catch-up. Yeah. And we keep talking about them scraping into the top 6, but they're miles off the other 3 teams in the playoffs. So they can't really afford to drop many points at all. That's the position they've left themselves in, and these are 2 big games.
But reality is, all of those above them, they have to play them again. So in that sense, that wouldn't concern me unduly. As long as they perform, as we know they can do. But Forest, that falls into the Birmingham category for me. That's a team who have to be put away emphatically. And then, for about 92, 93 minutes at St James's Park, Norwich were on for a win there. So I'm not personally fearing Newcastle's visit, but by the same token, if Norwich are as vulnerable as they were last night, then Newcastle will score because they have probably some of the best attacking players in the division. So, but Carrow Road's a different proposition. I would fancy Norwich to take at least 4 points and hopefully 6, and then, as I say, then you feel it's rolling on. I mean, like I say, it feels like a defeat last night, but the reality is it's 4 unbeaten now. So you tack another 2 positive results onto that, then that's a 6 unbeaten stretch, and then there's grounds for optimism, but it just tinged with a bit of frustration at the minute.
I think we can see the corner, at least. Whether they'll turn or not, we'll see. Anything else you'd like to say, Pad?
Nope, I think that's probably it. Let's get home.
Let's get home. I think that's gone quite well. So thanks for watching. We'll try and do these live when connection allows, but Corley doesn't have Wi-Fi that allows this, apparently. So, and of course, thanks for listening on the podcast too. Make sure you subscribe to that, and we will give you all the reaction, analysis, build up, everything you need over at pinken.com, either side of the 2 home games coming up. Until then, thank you very much, Pat. Thanks to you for watching and listening, and we'll see you soon.